Alright, great. Alright, so how many of you guys have ever done any sort of woodworking?
Yeet!
Alright, so I have too, and my brother also did quite a bit of woodworking too. In particular, he would do a lot of stuff on the wood lathe, and even more specific, he would make a lot of bowls, and I always thought that those were very cool, so I decided that I was going to try and make a bowl. So my previous experience, I've made pens before, but I found out that those are almost boring to make because you only use one tool and you can't vary the shape to what you want it very much because it's just such a small thing. And so to practice, I first started off by just making a couple of little spindles. I made this one first and just did small little details. And then I made this one second and made larger details. And I just used these to practice using the different tools that I would be using for the bowl. So first, I had to start off by cutting all the boards and getting them to the right size. And after that, I glued them together to form an 8" by 8" square, and then cut that into a circle on the bandsaw. Then after that, I had to glue it together like a birthday cake, and then drill a hole in the bottom of it, see, and then I was able to use that to mount it on the lathe. So the first step was rounding out the outside of it, and that was going pretty well, but then I realized that this end layer right there was really wobbly and like part of it was thinner than the rest of it. So then I set up the lathe as it's shown there and then tried to even that off. Then, as I was doing that, it fell off the lathe and it was not good. A big chunk fell off the bottom, so then I had to stop everything that I was doing and glue it back up. Then, after that, I started hollowing out the inside of the bowl. This was by far probably the best part of the whole project because it was just a lot easier than everything else, and you could just kind of go for a while and not have to worry about much. So then I set up the lathe as it's right there and rounded off this edge right there, and then sanded it. Sanded the outside, then the inside, and then I went over sanding it with some steel wool to get it as smooth as possible. And then after that, I put finish on it. I used canola oil, and then it ended up with that. However, after that, I realized that there were these little streak things in the finish of it, and I found out that that was because some of the sawdust from the darker type of woods got caught in the grain of the wood, and then when I finished it, it kind of like locked that all in. So then I had to go through and sand it all by hand, get as much of it off as I could, and then refinish it, and I ended up with this. So for the difficulties and challenges, huge difficulty was when it obviously fell off the lathe. That was not very good. And also cutting the circles just right off the bat was really, really hard. I just was terrible at that for some reason. And then some successes were just hollowing it out. That went really well without pretty much any sort of setbacks at all. Next time, I would take more time finding the center of the bowl as I was before I put it on the lathe, because I found out that I had it being held in the lathe slightly off center, and that is why this outside edge started to get uneven. And overall, I've learned that it was a really good project. It was fun to make, and you can't always expect something to be perfect the first time that you try it.
Thank you.